The house had been empty for years before I moved in. A squat two-story thing with cracked siding and a porch that tilted toward the street like it was listening. The realtor called it a fixer-upper. I called it affordable. The first night was uneventful. I unpacked a few boxes, set up my mattress in the living room, and fell asleep to the soft hum of the refrigerator. The next night, though, I noticed something odd. I was pacing the kitchen, a nervous habit, trying to decide where to hang my father's old clock. The floorboards creaked beneath my steps, and then, a second later, I heard another creak from upstairs. Same rhythm, same weight. At first, I thought it was an echo. The place was old, the wood dry and hollow. But when I stopped walking, the sound stopped too. And when I started again, deliberately slow, the second set of steps followed. I stood there for a full minute, holding my breath. The house went still. Then I took one step. Creak! A heartbeat later, from above me. Creak! My stomach dropped. I told myself it was the pipes, the house settling. Anything that wasn't the thing it sounded like. Someone upstairs, mirroring me. I grabbed the flashlight from the counter and climbed the stairs, one careful step at a time. Each stair moaned like it was alive. The upper floor was empty. Bare rooms, dust, old wallpaper peeling in strips. The sound didn't follow me up there. After searching every closet and corner, I went back down, feeling foolish. The silence pressed close, heavy. I poured myself a drink and told myself I was just tired. Over the next few nights, the sound continued. Always the same pattern. Whenever I moved downstairs, my echo came from above, exactly 1 second behind. If I stood still long enough, it would stop. But the moment I took another step, it resumed. A perfect mimicry. Sometimes when I turned on the TV to drown it out, I could still feel it. The subtle vibration through the ceiling. I called a friend Jacob and told him about it. He laughed. Man, you're in an old house. Everything creaks. Probably raccoons or something. Raccoons don't mimic footsteps, I said. Well, he replied, maybe they're polite raccoons. I didn't laugh. That night I made a plan. If I could catch the noise on video, I could prove it was just sound traveling weirdly through the structure. Something explainable. So, I set my phone on the upstairs hallway table, camera facing the floor, recording through the night. Then I went to bed. I didn't sleep much. Around midnight, I heard it again. The faint echo of my own turning in bed, my shifting on the mattress. But I didn't move. I just listened, eyes open in the dark. Eventually, exhaustion pulled me under. When I woke up, sunlight was bleeding through the blinds. My phone was still upstairs, the battery nearly dead, but the video file saved. I brewed coffee and sat on the couch, phone in hand, ready to laugh at myself for being paranoid. The first few hours of footage were uneventful, just the faint ticking of the clock and the static hiss of an empty house. Then, at 2:41 a.m., something changed. The camera shook slightly, like someone had brushed past it. Then faintly, a shadow moved across the wall. The sound came next. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. I watched, frozen, as I walked into frame. It was me. Same clothes I'd worn that night. Same posture. Same everything. I moved down the hallway, my face blank, eyes open, but unfocused. I leaned toward the camera, and for a moment, the screen filled with darkness. My mouth moved, barely audible through the static. I turned up the volume, and the voice, my voice, whispered, "Don't come up here." Then I turned and walked back down the hall out of view. The video ended 2 minutes later. My first thought was that it had to be sleepwalking. I'd never done it before, but it made sense. Sort of. Except, the next night I stayed downstairs, locking the door to the staircase. Around midnight I heard it again. The footsteps above me, pacing. Not delayed this time, independent. Back and forth, slow and heavy, like someone waiting. I sat on the couch, every light on, the phone recording again. The footsteps continued for hours. Then, around 3 a.m., they stopped. A minute later, the lock on the stair door clicked open. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Another step, closer now. Creak, 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 descending the stairs. I gripped my phone like a weapon, its screen shaking in my hand. The final step landed, soft but clear. The living room light flickered. Something moved at the edge of the doorway. A shape, my height, my build. I couldn't see its face in the dim light, but I knew the posture. The way it tilted its head. The way it breathed. It was me. It smiled. The kind of smile that doesn't belong to a human face. "I told you," it said softly, voice trembling with laughter. "Don't come up here." Then it stepped forward, and the lights went out. They found the house weeks later. The neighbors had called the police after hearing constant footsteps at night, even though no one lived there anymore. The footage on the phone was corrupted, except for one frame. A dark hallway, a hand reaching toward the lens, and a voice, faint and low. "He's still upstairs." The first flash of lightning illuminated the living room in a stark white burst that burned across Laura's eyes. A second later, everything plunged into darkness. The hum of the refrigerator died. The air conditioner's soft whir faded, and the sudden silence that followed was almost worse than the storm itself. "Perfect," she muttered. She had half expected it. The thunderstorm had been brewing all evening, but she still wasn't prepared for how heavy the quiet felt without the low comfort of electricity. The rain lashed harder against the windows, sheets of water cascading down the glass. The thunder rolled again, deep and patient, like a giant clearing its throat somewhere in the hills. Laura fumbled for her phone, the glow of the screen faint in her trembling hands. The battery was low. She navigated the beam of light toward the kitchen, pulling open drawers until she found the box of candles she kept for power outages. The smell of wax and dust filled the air as she lined them up on the coffee table, struck a match, and brought them to life one by one. Orange light flickered against the walls, turning every familiar corner into something uncertain. Her own shadow stretched long and thin across the floor, its head swaying slightly whenever she moved. She tried to laugh at herself. "You're fine," she whispered. "Just a storm. Power will be back soon." The house creaked, a deep, wooden groan from somewhere overhead. She curled up on the couch, blanket around her shoulders, and tried to read. The candlelight wavered across the page, but she couldn't focus. Every sound seemed amplified now. The steady patter of rain, the slow dripping near the back door, the moaning of the wind pressing against the siding. When she shifted on the couch, the cushion gave a faint squeak, and from somewhere behind her came another one, identical and delayed by a single heartbeat. She froze. Her eyes flicked toward the window, expecting to see her own reflection, and maybe the distortion of lightning, but she saw nothing but darkness and her faint outline in the glass. "Old house," she said aloud. "Wood moves." Settles. The clock on the wall clicked faintly. That was wrong. It was digital, not analog. She looked over at it. The screen was blank, black. Still, the clicking continued. A chill rippled down her spine. She stood, moving slowly, the floorboards creaking under her bare feet. Another creak followed from the far corner of the room. 1 second later, she took another step. Creak. A second later, from behind her, creak. Her throat tightened. The lightning flashed again, brighter this time, washing the room in electric white for a split second. And in the reflection of the window, she saw herself sitting on the couch, and someone else standing behind her. She spun around so fast the blanket slipped from her shoulders. The room was empty. Her heart pounded. Her mouth went dry. Then she noticed it. Dark patches on the carpet, where the light caught footprints, wet and glistening, leading from the window toward the couch. 2 of them. She knelt down and touched one. Damp. Cold. Rainwater. She glanced at the window again, but the latch was still closed tight. The storm beat harmlessly against the glass, unable to get in. She whispered to no one. "You're tired. You imagined it." Thunder bellowed close by, rattling the panes, and then, mercifully, the lights flickered back on. The sudden brightness was almost painful. Relief flooded her chest. Thank God. But then, as her eyes adjusted, she caught the faintest glimmer in the window's reflection. The same scene, but wrong again. The reflection of her living room showed her standing exactly where she was. But in it, the figure behind her was closer now. Her stomach flipped. She turned again. Empty room. Same carpet. Same footprints. The lights flickered once, twice, and went out again. The candles had blown out too. She hadn't seen or felt a draft, but their smoke curled through the darkness like thin black fingers. She stood perfectly still, breathing through her nose, trying to listen. The storm outside had softened, the thunder more distant now. Yet the air inside her house felt charged, too still, like the moment before lightning strikes. She took one small step toward the kitchen. Crayak. A second later, somewhere behind her, crayak. Her skin prickled. She bolted for the kitchen, fumbling for the matches. Her shaking hand struck 1, 2, 3 before she caught the flame. A small circle of light bloomed around her, weak but comforting. She exhaled and froze. On the doorframe leading back into the living room was a wet handprint, sliding slowly downward, leaving streaks behind. The thunder growled again, low and distant. Laura held up the candle. The living room beyond the doorway was darker than before, almost black, and she could just make out the faint trail of footprints leading from the couch toward where she stood. Laura held up the candle. The living room beyond the doorway was darker than before, almost black, and she could just make out the faint trail of footprints leading from the couch toward where she stood. "Who's there?" she whispered. Her voice sounded wrong, as if the walls were swallowing it. There was no answer. Another flicker. The power surged, and the lights came back, humming faintly. Her eyes darted to the window. The reflection stared back at her, bright and clear. And this time, she saw the figure's face. It was pale, indistinct, as if seen through deep water. The eyes were wrong, not black, but empty, soft gray voids that didn't reflect the light. Its mouth hung open slightly, the start of a smile, and it was closer. She turned around, certain she'd find it behind her, but the space was empty. The carpet, though, she saw it, was darker, wetter. The light flickered again, dimmed, steadied. She took a step backward. The figure in the reflection took a step forward. "Please," she whispered, voice trembling. "Leave me alone." The lights died. The darkness was complete. For a long moment there was nothing. No thunder, no wind. Just the sound of rain dripping from the gutters outside. Then came the sound of footsteps, soft and deliberate, moving across the carpet. 1 step. 2. 3. They stopped just behind her. Laura's breath shook. She could feel warmth at the back of her neck. Breath that wasn't hers. She spun around, the candle flame guttering out in the motion. She caught a flash of lightning through the window, and for that brief instant saw it standing there. A tall, pale shape. Eyes like hollows, mouth stretched into something that might have been a grin. The flash died, and the room went black. The next time the lights came back, an hour later, the house was empty. The front door was open, rainwater pooling at the threshold. 2 sets of footprints trailed from the living room to the porch. One light and barefoot, one darker, broader, soaked through. Outside, the storm had finally passed. The air was still. Inside, by the window, a single handprint remained on the glass, pressed from the inside, faint but unmistakably wet. And if you looked long enough at the reflection in that window, you might swear you could still see a figure standing just behind you, smiling, waiting for the next time the lights go out. I bought the smart home system after the break-in next door. The company promised peace of mind. Cameras, sensors, automatic locks, voice control, the whole thing. And at first, it worked beautifully. Every night, around 11, my phone would ping with the usual routine. Front door locked, rear door locked, basement door locked. I'd nod, satisfied, and drift off knowing the house was sealed tighter than a vault. Until last Tuesday. That was the first time I got the 4th notification. Attic door locked. I frowned at the screen. My house didn't have an attic. It was a single-story ranch, built in the 1970s. No hidden crawl space, no upper floor, nothing. The only ceiling access was a vent in the hallway, barely big enough for a raccoon. I figured it was a software glitch. Maybe the company's cloud system mixed up my account with someone else's. I deleted the notification and went back to watching TV. But then, 10 minutes later, attic door unlocked. I stared at the message. A chill crawled up my spine. The vents clicked on a moment later. Warm air spilled into the room, thicker than usual, with a faint rhythm to it, almost like breathing. I told myself it was just the heater. The system was voice-activated. Maybe I'd triggered something by accident. Still, I got up and checked the thermostat. It was off. That stopped me cold. The air kept coming, a slow exhale from every vent. I climbed onto a chair and held my hand against the one in the living room. The air wasn't just warm, it was humid, like someone's breath. I pulled the vent cover off. The metal rattled in my hands. The duct beyond was dark, the kind of dark that eats light. I aimed my phone flashlight inside, but it didn't reach far. The air coming out pulsed faintly, like the lung of the house was drawing breath. I turned off the main breaker, thinking maybe it was an electrical short or malfunction. The lights flickered out. The heating unit groaned, winding down, but the breathing didn't stop. My phone buzzed again. Motion detected. Hallway. Ceiling. I checked the feed. The motion sensor showed faint heat signatures. Something moving slowly above the corridor outside my bedroom. No attic, I thought again. There's no attic. Still, The sensor map clearly showed something pacing above the ceiling, tracing the path of the hallway, pausing directly above the bedroom door. The camera in the living room caught a faint vibration in the ceiling drywall, just a tremor, like something testing the surface. I told myself I was imagining it, that the system had to be glitched. But then the air vent above my head coughed, releasing a faint puff of warm air that carried with it a smell. Old wood, mildew, and something faintly metallic. Blood, I realized, after a moment. It smelled like blood. By midnight, I'd convinced myself I was dealing with a raccoon, maybe a squirrel. Some animal got in through the ducts and was tripping the sensors. I messaged the smart home company, attaching screenshots. They replied with the usual corporate blandness. We're investigating this unusual behavior. Please do not attempt to access or disconnect your system manually while diagnostics are running. Too late for that. I'd already killed the breaker, but my phone kept buzzing. Attic door locked. Attic door unlocked. Attic motion detected. Hallway motion detected. Then, bedroom ceiling motion detected. That one made my chest tighten. I turned on the flashlight again and stared at the ceiling. Nothing moved. The plaster looked solid, untouched, and yet the vent above my bed shuddered slightly. Once, then again, like someone brushing a hand against it from the other side. By 1 a.m., the breathing from the ducts had slowed, soft and steady, matching my own pulse. Then it changed. It started syncing with me, inhaling when I inhaled, exhaling when I exhaled, like the thing in the ceiling was listening, learning my rhythm. When I held my breath, the air stilled. When I let it out, it resumed. I climbed off the bed, knees shaking, and left the room. The second I stepped into the hallway, I heard it. A scrape. Soft, but deliberate. Right above me. I looked up. The ceiling vent cover was slightly ajar now, one corner hanging loose. Another notification. Attic door open. The air coming from the vent grew warmer, faster, more ragged. I backed away, my phone trembling in my hand. Then came another sound. Not from the ceiling this time, but from the vents themselves, deeper in the walls. A faint thud, followed by the whisper of movement through the ducts. Something was crawling. I ran for the front door, yanking at the deadbolt, but it refused to turn. The system had locked everything. My phone buzzed again. Front door locked, rear door locked, basement door locked, attic door unlocked. Then the voice assistant, the cheery, neutral female tone, spoke from every speaker in the house. System update complete. All rooms secured. I screamed, "Open the doors!" The voice paused. "Opening attic access." From the hallway, I heard the groan of wood, slow, deliberate. Dust drifted down like ash as a square of ceiling shifted, revealing a narrow opening I'd never seen before. Warm, wet air poured out. The smell hit next, rot and something living. Then the vent in my bedroom rattled violently, the metal bending outward as something inside it pushed. I didn't stay to see. I bolted for the garage, slamming the interior door shut behind me. My phone lit up one last time. Garage door locked. Attic motion detected. Hallway motion detected. Bedroom motion detected. User located. The air vent above the garage door hissed open. Warm breath rolled out. Slow, steady, human. Attic door open. The voice assistant whispered, almost gently, "Welcome upstairs." And then the lights went out.